Hello, my name is Jeremy with Faithful Guardian Training Center. Today we're going to be talking about chest trauma. Today we're specifically going to be talking about cardiac tamponade, which is when you have fluid buildup inside of the pericardial sac. All right, so what this does is, or what happens is you have blood that gets into the pericardial sac, which is going to diminish your ability's heart to be able to pump. So think about it as you have your heart muscle that's able to expand and contract. Okay, well, you have this fixed container, okay, and that is going to be your pericardial sac. So if your pericardial sac is fixed, okay, and you have your heart that is inside constantly trying to beat, okay, what's going to happen is whenever your heart beats during a injury, where you have blood leaking out into the pericardial sac, the more your heart beats, the more blood that gets into that sac. The more blood that gets into that sac, the less room that leaves for your heart to be able to expand and contract. And so what that does is that actually causes compression in the heart. And ultimately, so what that's going to end up doing is that's going to cause your heart to not be able to contract anymore. This is going to affect Starling's law of the heart, which is the rubber band effect. So the more your heart fills, the stronger the contraction. The more your ventricles fill, the stronger the contraction. So if you don't allow for a whole bunch of filling of those ventricles, you're not going to have a very strong contraction. And that's actually going to diminish your cardiac output by diminishing your stroke volume. And so your heart is probably going to try to compensate by this by increasing the heart rate. Okay? And it's not, the more that your heart beats, the more blood that gets released. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see three things. Okay, those three things are going to be, it's called Beck's triad. And that's going to be muffled heart tones, jugular vein distension, and hypotension or narrowing pulse pressure. Okay, so first thing, going back to jugular vein distension. Jugular vein distension is what you have whenever you have obstruction of blood flow returning to the heart. Okay, and so what you're going to see is you're going to see this engorgement of the jugular veins. Okay, and again, that means that you have an increase in your central venous pressure. All right, next you're going to have muffled heart tones, because if you were to take your stethoscope and you were to listen straight over the heart, which is right there, substernal to the left, in that fifth intercostal space, fifth rib, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear the heart. So if you hear a distance or it sounds like your heart is in an aquarium, that's going to tell you that you have blood flow or blood in that pericardial sac, or a fluid in that pericardial sac, and that's diminishing. It's essentially increasing the distance between your stethoscope and your heart. So that's where that muffled heart tones come from. All right. Now for this next part, hypotension or narrowing pulse pressure. Okay, so for this part, to establish narrowing pulse pressure, you actually have to develop a trend of vital signs. And the way that you trend vital signs is you actually have to have a minimum of 3 sets. Okay, you must have 3 sets of vital signs to trend blood pressure to be able to tell if you have a narrowing pulse pressure. All right, so what's happening is during contraction, you have your systolic pressures. During relaxation, you have your diastolic pressures. So what's happening is as your heart's contracting and you have your systolic pressure, your diastolic pressure as you have your contraction and relaxation of the heart, the less that your heart is able to pump out, the lower your systolic pressure is going to be. If your heart doesn't have as much of an ability to relax, your diastolic pressure is going to go up. So as your systolic pressure is dropping because your heart can't contract as much, and as your diastolic pressure is increasing or staying the same, as your heart doesn't have enough time to relax, this is going to cause that narrowing in the pulse pressure. Okay, and so a narrowing pulse pressure would mean, for example, if you had your first blood pressure and let's say it was 120/80, that perfect number, you were to take your second blood pressure 3 to 5 minutes later, it would be 110/86. That's nothing too crazy. That third blood pressure that you get, let's say that it's going to be 96 over 88. That's a very narrow pulse pressure, and that's something that you're going to get to see on those vital signs. So again, muffled heart tones, jugular vein distension, narrowing pulse pressure. That indicates a cardiac tamponade, which is going to cause a narrowing of your pulse pressures. And the best way to fix this is going to be by doing a best way to fix this is going to be by performing a pericardiocentesis, which is where they actually take a needle, enter the pericardial sac, and draw the blood off. And this is going to be typically performed in the hospital by a physician.